Hey.
Hello, my name's Hannah and we are interviewing you as part of Camden's Black History season. What I want to know is, what is your current job role and where do you work?
So I am the managing director of Tileyard Impact. So I work for at the Tileyard, which is in King's Cross. We're the largest largest community of creative businesses and private recording studios in Europe. So we're the home of Apple Beats Radio, Pioneer DJs head offices are here, and we have artists' private studios, including people like Sigala, Charlie Sloth, Noel Gallagher, Ella Air, Emanike are based here. So a number of really big artists, and Tileyard Impact works specifically with young people and the local community to connect them to the music and creative industries by providing work experiences, artist development programs, and community events. So we currently, we just, have you guys watched the, what's it called, the show with Little Mix? Did you watch the Little Mix show, The Search, that was on BBC One over the weekend? No. Oh wow. Two guys who come through our program were in one of the bands called Nostalgia, who just been on the show with Little Mix. So yeah, we do a lot of artist development and other work.
My name's Faima. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourselves and your background.
Cool. So I went to Brit School. I was the first intake of year 10 in Brit School many years ago. If you're into soul music, Lyndon David Hall was a couple of years above me. Marsha Ambrosia, who wrote Butterflies for Michael Jackson, was a year above me. Natalie, who was in her group Flowetry, was in my art class. And people like Damage went to my school at the time. Didn't really take music hugely seriously until towards the end of the group. So the end of school, where I joined a hip hop group called Green Jade, and I was in that for 17 years. So we toured Europe. We opened the Olympics in 2004. We opened for Jay-Z. We recorded, I think, 4 albums, had a label, and a few other bits and pieces sort of over that period of time. And then while we were actually performing and stuff, we came up with an anti-gun crime song called Guns Down, which we teamed up with a charity called XLP. And between, I think, 2005 and 2010, performed it in schools in front of about 20,000 young people. And after that, when my band came to an end, I was really inspired with working with young people. So I went and worked for the charity and ran their arts for 8 years. So we would go into schools, we'd audition talent, put them on showcases, and then try and help them develop further. And then while I was doing that, I was invited by Will from the drum and bass band Chase and Status to help him open a school called Elam, which is like Brit School, but in East London. So I opened that school up, and then just kept finding that regardless of how good the education was, talented young people still faced the problem, whether they were coming out of school, college, or university, that if they didn't know anybody in the music industry, they weren't getting anywhere. So I decided to go back into the music industry and try and open the door from the inside out rather than continually knocking from the outside in. So that's what I'm doing here.
Hi, I'm Safa, and I was wondering what got you interested in working in your current job?
Just as I was saying, it was, for me, it was a case I just kept seeing really great talent that didn't know how to navigate the system. And fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of people who are creative are kind of just told, be the best, and then you'll get the opportunity. And in reality, it doesn't work that way. It works by you knowing the right people, and deliberately going out of your way to go and meet the right people, having experiences of your own. So you getting off your backside and basically recording your own songs or putting your own stuff on YouTube, or going and doing performances yourself. And I found that a lot of talented people didn't know that stuff. So I've always wanted to redress the balance because I found that people who were less talented seem to know that stuff more so. So we kind of ended up with all these kind of, for want of a better phrase, you kind of end up with Jedward being really successful on TV, and you wonder how are these guys who can't actually sing, how are they doing so well when there's someone over here who's really, really talented and no one's heard of them? And the reason is because they know how the system works. So I really wanted to help talent learn how the system works. And I'm really privileged to have been doing that for now sort of 10 years. And a lot of the guys that I started with are doing extremely well. One of my girls is in lead role in the next series of Top Boy. As I said, we've just had Esther and Zita on this BBC One show doing really, really well. Some of the guys that I work with, one of the girls models that I work with was just in a recent Misguided campaign. So, and I don't think it's unfair to say that if it hadn't been for the interventions and the contacts that we had, it would have been quite difficult for a lot of those guys to have made those steps. So that's why I do it. I love seeing talent progress.
Hey, my name is Nahom, and I wanted to ask, what is your job like? And what do you think what skills do you think you need to be successful in your sector?
I think it's a lot about your attitude. Finishing stuff is probably one of the biggest things in my job. Lots of people have really great ideas. The people that really get supported are the ones who can prove it and finish it and deliver it. So, and people underestimate how difficult finishing is. And I think the ability to see a project through and not be afraid is a huge part of this, because there's a lot, when you're creating anything, there's a lot of self-doubt that you have. You know, I went and visited some of my models are doing a shoot today. And one of them was talking about the fact that they, you know, sometimes go to shoots and are not sure if they're good enough to be there, or, you know, and you've been booked for a shoot. Obviously, people believe in you. But sometimes it's really difficult to have that belief in yourself. And I think that confidence is really, really important in this industry, to be able to be like, yeah, I can do this. You know, even if it doesn't go the best, I'm going to do what I can, and then I'll try again, and I'll try again. And I think that resilience is key to this industry.
Hello, my name is Isman, and I was wondering,
Hey.
Are there any black leaders in your field, or any like life in general, who have inspired you personally?
I think my biggest inspiration is probably Jay-Z. I was a Jay-Z fan for years. And what I saw them do was not just be the artists. I think from the black community, often we are the show, but not the business, as James Brown used to say. And what I saw from Jay-Z was someone who had a talent, but also understood the business. So when he came into the game, he came in as a label owner, not just as an artist. And because of that, his trajectory has been different. And I've watched over time how he's found a way to control every single part of it. So he can find the talent. He has access to the radio stations and all the promotion platforms that he needs. He then bought Tidal, so he had his own platform to sell stuff to people, or for people to listen to it. He then owned a clothing company so that they could wear his clothes. He then bought an alcohol company, so when they're in the partying to songs, they could drink his drink. Do you know? And he found a way at every single point to be involved in the process the whole way around. And I've been really inspired by that. So for myself, coming from the point of view of going into schools and auditioning talent, that's cool. How do you help them to the next stage? Well, now I'm at the next stage where that talent is on Top Boy, and that talent's in press, and that talent's on radio. Cool. Like, how do we then progress them to the next stage where they're influencers and they know how to use their social media. So that's really been, so watching Jay-Z for me has been really, really eye-opening. And the fact that I had the opportunity to meet him was huge for me. But that's been one of my biggest inspirations.
As a Black person in your field, have you faced any challenges?
Oh yes. Sorry, that's my business partner is cracking up in the background. It's often a challenge when you're the only one in the room, especially when you get to, I'm now in quite a senior level. Most of the meetings that I go to, I'm the only Black person in the room. And how you handle that is really what shows whether you progress. I'm now quite comfortable in those situations, but if you haven't been, it can be really, really challenging. So I've had to learn how to communicate. So for 4 years, I went to private school between the age of 7 and 11. And within that period of time, I learned to speak like this. So I could find my way to have a good telephone voice that communicated what I was saying very, very clearly. But I'm also from South London, so man does talk like this from time to time. What I had to do was learn how and when I speak and who I speak to. And I had to be able to tailor that. And I learned that being in corporate settings, if I could present myself in a way people would listen to me, that they wouldn't listen to me if I couldn't switch over into their language. I had to learn to be comfortable in different situations. So as an example, when I was at the charity, we used to take a lot of young people to charity dinners. And these are like black tie events, where you're in a suit with a bow tie and there's like 5 different knives and forks and those sorts of things. And I had to learn, how do you act at these kind of events? How do you interact with people? How do you talk to people? And I found being Black, but being able to speak their language helped me tremendously with people trusting that I could deliver what I deliver. So I also found that, building trust over time has been really, really helpful for me. But those were some of the barriers I find for a lot of people. It's like, so for example, I ski, right? I can, so there's a youth charity that we used to work with called Snow Camp that teaches young people from inner cities how to ski. If you work in a big corporate firm, many of the people there will have been skiing and they know how to ski. But if you're from Newham or Islington, there's not a lot of snow. So you can, but if you have those sorts of things, it breaks down barriers, because you can talk about, oh yeah, I went Biarritz and I did this, and oh yeah, my family, nobody goes there. And you find yourself being able to have conversations that sometimes people didn't expect you to be able to have. And I found that that's really broken down barriers for me.
What advice is there that you'd give to a young person who's interested in your job or joining your sector?
Have a drive and a passion for it. People assume that the creative industries have a lot of money involved, and there isn't. It isn't that, but there are lots of long hours, and you do get to experience really, really cool stuff. And I think that kind of offsets it. But you have to be understanding and appreciative that this isn't a business that works on a job application basis. It's so much about, will you turn up? There's a great documentary on Netflix called The Defiant Ones, which is about the 2 guys behind Apple Beats headphones, Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine. And there was an example where Jimmy Iovine was working as a sound engineer in a recording studio. And he'd been doing it for a little while and things were going okay. And then he got a call on Easter Sunday and was asked to come into the studio when he was supposed to have a meal with his family. And he wasn't told what the session was. He was just told he should come in. And he went and he was going to go and leave, and his mum cussed him, like, how are you going to leave Easter dinner? We're all here and everything else. And he was like, I don't know, I've got to take this opportunity. He got to the studio and it was John Lennon in the studio from the Beatles, right? Because he went that day, he built a relationship with John Lennon and ended up working on John Lennon's Imagine album. And that was the real start of his career. If he hadn't have turned up, that wouldn't have happened. And in our industry, so much can be learned on the job. It's so important just to be there, because people just want to work with people that they feel that they can trust and will deliver. And it doesn't matter if you don't have all the skills, but if you're enjoyable to be around, if you're reliable, if you're punctual, if you're a good communicator, and you're willing to learn, out of the fun of the fact that you might get free tickets to stuff, or you might get a free t-shirt, or, do you know what I mean? And you might bump into an artist. If you can do that, this industry really opens up for you. But if you're not willing to, we often make the joke about people making cups of tea. But the reason why the creative industries want you to make a cup of tea, because let's put it this way, if I can't trust you with a cup, hot water, and a tea bag, how am I going to trust you with £30,000 for a music video budget? You do the tea well, then I can trust you with other processes. And that's how this thing works.
So what's the best thing about your job?
Seeing people's dreams turn into a reality. I've worked with Esther. I've known Esther for 8 years. I've known Shanice for maybe 6 years. They didn't win the show on the weekend, but in the last 2 weeks, their Instagram followings went from 3,000 to over 10,000. The band went to Nostalgia, which is the band, got 31,000 followers in 2 weeks. I've had record companies call me about wanting to do songs and get them out before Christmas. Like, this is the things that, we'd always hoped for. And now it's really here. With my girl who's in Top Boy, she started off as a dancer. I helped her get into acting. And now that she's progressed, she'd always wanted to do Top Boy. And when she got there, she sent me a video of her dressing room, like on the first day. And knowing how much this had been her dream for so long, that was amazing. And it's not always just about like big commercial success. I think that we are often put off our dreams, and it's really amazing to be in a position where you can help someone facilitate the thing that they really want in their own life. And that might not be big chart success. That might be, I've got one girl who lives, plays guitar and lives on a boat, and she's happy as Larry. And I helped her in that process. And those kind of things, having had the privilege myself of being in a group, touring around the world with my mates, and that coming, having a full cycle of it coming to an end, it's really cool to be able to help other people who were like me at 16, 17, 18, accomplish the things that they wanted to accomplish in their lives.
That's it.
Any of your questions?
No.
I think I've answered everything.
That's it. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. What are your interests?
I'm interested in politics.
Okay, cool.
I'm interested in sociology and politics.
Cool.
I'm interested in psychology, nursing, mental health nursing, that kind of stuff. I find it really interesting.
I'm interested in medicine.
Cool.
I'm trying economics.
Economics. Cool. Well, good luck with everything.
Thank you.
And thank you for being nice to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting.